Hey everybody, Dave Whitmarsh. Got another special guest today, Debbie from Self Power Now. I saw Debbie speak on another session and immediately reached out and thought I need to talk to this lady. So, welcome aboard, Debbie.
Great. Hi, Dave.
Hey. So, um, why don't we start with maybe some context around what you do and what your company does, and that way, the conversations might fall in line a little better when people understand where you're coming from.
Sure.
So,
Well, for the last couple of decades, I have been writing, speaking, and teaching about wellness, health, happiness, and all kinds of things that go along in that bigger spectrum of wellness. For a very long time now, but my background really is in corporate. Actually have this parallel career as a corporate leader as well as an entrepreneur in the wellness space. So I've been doing this for quite some time and I've got several books out. And during COVID, like all of us, sitting around doing nothing during lockdown for a while, I started getting some new ideas for some online courses, which I know we want to talk about now.
cool. Yeah. And so fill me in a bit about uh, this career you had in corporate. So what was your specialty and your expertise before you became an entrepreneur?
Well, it all started in the tech industry, actually, and mainly in the magazine publishing industry for some large media companies. And I started in sales and advertising and worked my way up and eventually became publisher and publishing director of several high tech publications. And during that time, I was going through a very difficult time in my personal life with my family. And I lost four family members in 4 years,
Oh,
which sort of changed my whole perspective on what I might want to be doing in life. So at some point in that career, I left and decided that I was going to make a pivot, like a lot of people do in their late 30s. And I started writing and learning more about self awareness and spiritual development and overcoming challenges. And I got certified in hypnotherapy and as a life coach. And at the same time, I was still doing consulting work for large companies, sometimes coming in as a CEO, interim CEO, or executive director. So I kept that business, my toe in the water in the business and the corporate environment for quite a while. And during that time, I was also writing. I was writing books. My first book was about overcoming challenges in life called Vita's Will. The next one was about happiness called The Goddess of Happiness. And then I wrote a book about self love called Note to Self Love. And that sort of launched another whole career in the wellness space and happiness. And I just kept also consulting with companies and doing more consulting work rather than going in full time with companies, which I still do. And that's how it all began.
well, that's awesome. So after you banged your head against the wall writing a book, you decide to do it two more times. So,
Yeah, it's so funny that you say that because everyone says to me, "Oh, everyone has like a book idea, right? Like, I want to write a book about." And I think we're all writers, we're all creators. Deep down inside, we want to create and we want to bring information into the world. But it is a little bit more difficult when you actually
right.
sit down and try to organize it. Thankfully, I am an uber organized person. So I was able to kind of visualize these in my mind. And I have to say, I call it downloads. I was getting downloads every night about like what's the next chapter going to be and whatnot. So I was so driven while I was writing these books that I never really set out to say, oh, I'm going to write a book about X. It just sort of started pouring out of me. And I think a lot of that was cathartic experience for myself as well. And then, when COVID hit, I thought for sure I was going to write another book. And that didn't happen. And I was waiting, because you have to kind of get inspiration, right? For that. As I said, it has to kind of flow nicely. And it just didn't happen. And I was waiting, like a lot of people. I was pretty impatient during COVID and also felt very powerless, right? During
Mm.
COVID. I'm sure you had some of the same experiences as well as everybody else on the planet. And then all of a sudden, I started thinking, I know a lot about the corporate market. I know a lot about what employees go through and the stresses that they're feeling. And I thought right now there's going to be a lot more need for wellness type tools, different types of wellness tools, either during COVID or after COVID, post COVID, because people are more stressed. They're working different ways than they ever have before. And the way they, digest information, the way they meet, the way they socialize, all has changed. And a lot of that's not going to go back to the way it
No.
was. So I started getting these ideas about how I would write or develop a series of courses for self empowerment. And self empowerment has always been the overarching theme on all of my work, whether that be, happiness or self love or health and wellness. It's all about taking control over your own self, going within and figuring out how you can get to the next step. How do you make positive change in your life? And that's what I've been about for 20 years. And all of a sudden, these courses started flowing through and I started writing and writing and taping and all of a sudden I developed what I call Self Power Now series. And now that launched a whole new area for me.
I'll give you a lot of credit. And it is, truthfully, it is the next logical step, right? To do online after doing some books, but it's takes a special kind of person. And I'll admit I'm not that type of person. So so I have a tough enough time getting through a book, never mind writing one. So so okay, so now you've created something that it focuses on, happiness and wellness, and so tell me a bit of go into a bit of depth around that program.
Sure, sure. Well, first of all, whether you're an employee or whether you're just, a mother or a consumer, these topics are universal, right? We
Mhm.
all want the same things in life. What are they? I could name them in four items. We want to be happy, we want to be healthy, we want to feel loved, right? Even though some of us might not admit that, but we kind of spend our whole lives getting approval and love from other people, whether it's our families or colleagues or bosses or whatnot. And we want to be or feel at peace, right? And those were the four areas I concentrated on these courses. And ironically enough, I didn't start out by thinking about it this way, but they actually correspond to the four realms of life that are extremely important for all of us. One is the mental realm, and that's the happiness. One is the physical realm, that's the health. And that's not only just your physical health, but your physical surroundings, right? Your career, your finances, your relationships, right? The third is the spiritual realm, and that's what I call being Zen, right? I don't say the word peaceful, but I kind of make it cute. I say be Zen. And that's about connecting with your inner spirit, your inner strength, your inner power to overcome challenges in life, whether that be COVID or anything else. And the fourth area is the emotional realm, right? That's about showing up in the world with a sense of love for yourself, for your fellow human being, for your colleagues, for your employees, and how you treat yourself and others, whether that be with kindness, because, the rule of, like attracts like, right? If you want more
Mhm.
love in your life, you're going to have to be more loving. So these four courses emerged out of Self Power Now because they're all in a self empowerment, what I would consider bubble, right? One is called Be Happy Now. That's the mental realm. Be Healthy Now is the physical realm. Be Zen Now is the spiritual realm. And Be Loved Now is the emotional realm. And I knew that given what was happening in the environment right now and what people need, I knew that it wasn't good enough. It wouldn't be enough to just focus on one because these kinds of programs need to have a holistic approach. Remember, I'm sure you've been around a long time. Remember when wellness meant, oh, let's put a fitness challenge up
Right.
and that'll be it, or now it's really, you hear a lot about meditation or mindfulness. Well, again, that's one little piece of it. And we know that if one area of our life is off, everything else gets wacky, right? It's all off. So it's important to focus on all four realms. And so I developed four separate courses, one for each of these realms. And the other thing that was extremely important to me right now, given again the climate, is And my books actually reflect this as well, is make it easy, because people do not, like you said, you can't even read a book. Like, make the content very easily digestible, make it quick. Most of the weekly modules can be done in about 15, 20 minutes, and make it fun. Give them what I call home play exercises, where people get to like be a little introspective, learn about themselves, but in some sort of fun exercises, some dialoguing, things like that. And the other thing I knew for sure, especially during this time, is make it digital, on demand, and self-paced, which is
Yeah.
extremely important. I mean, there are no videos in this course. There are some audios, but we've got this, like, I think the next mental health challenge is definitely going to be screen fatigue, right? I mean, look at us. We're like, how many times, during COVID, it's like we're tired of looking at screens, right? And we're tired of having a calendar, a Zoom call that we have to show up for. So what I did, and research actually backs this up, digital tools are becoming more important for employees, right? And for wellness. And they want to do it on their own time. They want to do it on their own time, and they want it on demand. And so all the courses are digital on demand, which also makes the administration on the corporate side really easy as well.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny hearing you speak. So those that know me, I've been working on a project called Women 365, and Deb is going to be a speaker on it, by the way. But it's a people don't understand that you you have to have all those components working in order to be your best self, right? And you can, if you focus on any one of those only, you're just handicapping yourself,
Hmm.
and in another area it's gonna come up, and the analogy that I love raspberries, right? And but you can't just eat raspberries, right?
Right.
You have to
Although
make
they have good
sure.
antioxidants.
Yeah, yeah. But you need more, right? And
Yes.
you need to have, the full array of nutrition. You can't just eat what you like, right?
Right.
So,
And
um,
and you also need sort of a continuum of material, different than reading a book or taking like a one-time webinar. One of the positions I held after the tech market is I ran a spiritual retreat center, and people would come, corporations would come and do professional or personal growth and development programs there. And we would also offer those programs ourselves. And one of the things we found was that when people left that seminar or whatever, I mean, they got all great information while they were there, but once they left it, they went back to their same old, same old. And it's hard to sort of retain and keep those habits going. So courses are different, especially digital courses where they can download all this information and have it available and have exercises that they can continue to do. Each of my courses are 6 weeks long. They could take longer if they want, but they're delivered on a weekly drip system. So you only get week one. In week one, you can only work on week one material. You can't jump ahead to week 6 and so on. And same thing for week 2. Now, you can take longer to do that. You can take a month for week 1 material if you wanted to, but you're not going to get week 2 until a week later, right? And I
right.
think that's important because it keeps people engaged, and it also gives them tools that they can constantly use and go back to. So when they go up on the back end platform and they take these courses, all of the material is downloadable, the audios, the articles, the poems, the affirmations, the song links, so that they have this base of this foundation on their own devices that they can access at any time. Because as you know, life goes up and down all the time, right? Sometimes
Mhm.
those ups and downs are really big. Sometimes they're a little, stumbling blocks. But it's nice to have material that you can actually go back to and say, hey, I remember in the course, she talked about, overcoming, problems with family relationships. Let's just use that as an example.
Mhm.
And they can go back to the relationship audio or section in the Be Healthy Now course and find that information.
Yeah. and by stretching it out, before stretching it out, that you get in the you give them the opportunity to create habits, right?
Yes.
Healthy habits,
Yes.
and that's such a huge advantage because it does take time to make change. Some not so much, others very slow, right? And
It depends on where you are on that wellness continuum, right? And
yeah.
everybody is in a different spot. Some people just need simple life tools, and they could get it right away and get into it. Others, might need to go into psychiatric therapy, which is fine too. And I mentioned that in the course as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's but having it spread out, it gives you the opportunity to to gravitate into a change mode, right?
Yes.
And that's really the only way it's done. Like we hear it all the time, right? And using food again as an example, right?
Hmm.
We know potato chips are bad for us, right? There's no
But they're so
secret
good.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, right? But they sell billions and billions of dollars of these things, but we know, right? And sometimes you have to just break those habits and and then if you have type 2 diabetes, you shouldn't eat them, right? But
Right.
it's
Right.
and so in doing that learning over time just gives you a tremendous opportunity to really make change, and that's what your program is all about,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up because the entire program, Self Power Now, is based on changing behaviors, right? And changing false beliefs that we all have that are kind of hidden in the subconscious. I mentioned that I was certified in hypnotherapy. And one of the things we do in the courses, at the end of each of the 4 courses, is a guided meditation. Again, that only takes about 10 minutes maybe to listen to. And I guide people through the meditation based on the material of that course. So at the end of the Be Happy course, the meditation is about happiness, right? And changing your mind and changing your thought patterns into a more positive view of yourself and the world. And what I do in those meditations is they have music behind them, very relaxing music, of course, but they're also encoded with binaural beats. I don't know if you've ever heard of binaural beats,
No.
but binaural beats create a certain wave state in your brain. And the wave state you want to create in your brain for positive change is what you call a theta wave state. The theta wave state is the state that you're in, and everybody can identify with this right before you fall asleep at night. You're not quite asleep, but
Mhm.
you're very relaxed, right? And it's the state where you want it's the state where you're most conducive for positive suggestions and change, and most conducive for getting rid of old false beliefs and negative patterns in your life.
Huh.
So you don't really hear these beats in the music, but all of that was intentionally put in to get people in a certain state of mind, so and body, so that they can feel more relaxed. And those are things that people could listen to over and over again, right? And that will never go away. I mean, I always listen to guided meditations. So one's on happiness, one's on health, et cetera. But that is extremely important for, as you were talking about, long-term change. It just doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey. And everybody is so unique, and it doesn't matter whether you're employee a company or not working at all. It's human nature, right? It's the same human nature. Like I said, you need the same things, you want the same things out of life, and it's all about changing behaviors.
Yeah, yeah, it's brilliant. And okay, so what would a company uh, expect then? So what do they like? Run me through what a company might pull out of this.
Sure. In terms of the setup and the administration, well, I would talk to a company first and see, what their timing is and how they want to roll out the program. Obviously, you have to roll something out, and I would help with that rollout. And we have videos and things like that. And employees get to sign up at their leisure, and they get an access code. It's very simple. They get an access code, and they can start the course. At the end of the courses, each of them have a feedback form, and that can be provided with the company. But companies, when they sign up, they get all 4 courses. They get the use of all 4 courses for an entire year, and it's on like a licensing agreement. And they'll need a year because some people, it might take them a year to go through all 4 courses, or it might take even longer than that. But the license is for all 4 courses for a year.
Right. And is there, um, I guess there's some form of an admin dashboard to know who's doing what, or what sort
Yes.
of reporting, I guess from a purchaser of it, what would their expectations be?
Yes, we can certainly provide how many users have signed up and if they've gone through the courses. And then, of course, the feedback forms at the end, we can aggregate that information as well. What we don't want to provide, and we want to make this clear to the employees as well, is any private information or
Right.
exactly, what they've downloaded to their computers, or plus, I don't think I can get that information. But we certainly don't want to provide private information. There is on the back end platform a social component that is just for that company. So ABC company, purchases Self Power Now license for the year. Their employees get a specific code just for their company, right? So they're not interacting with, say, a consumer that might have bought the course online, or somebody else's employees from another company. So they have sort of this capsule, and the employees have those employees have the opportunity, the ones that are taking the course, to interact on a social platform. Hey, this is working for me, or do you have any ideas or whatnot? They don't have to interact. Some people don't want to, right? But they do have that social platform to interact, and that's all public within that capsule for that company, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's interesting. And so, yeah, I like it. Well, it's just it's no surprise, right? It's everything I believe in, and truthfully wish I was did a better job of practicing it, right? And I should say, the first time that Deb and I spoke, um, it was during a walk, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, like, it's really not that hard, right? You
Right.
have
It's
a
it's
have a
not.
phone call, you just, if somebody, go for a walk. You don't need to sit on your couch, go for a
Right,
walk. Or
right. And that's
and
particularly why I did not do videos in the course. So each of the weeks starts with a short essay. That essay they can read if they want, or they can listen to it. It's an audio essay. The meditations as well are audio only, because I want people to close their eyes during the meditations. That you wouldn't want to be walking or driving to.
Mhm.
You want to
No,
be
yeah.
quiet. Yeah, you want to be sitting down for that one. And then the rest of the material is all material that they can download, that's written material. It's articles. Sometimes it's links to songs. I actually created a song playlist on Spotify for each of the modules. And sometimes it's even poems, things like that, or affirmations. So it's a combination of information that they can get on a weekly basis that's easy to download and easy to look through.
and and we're putting a special offer together, right? So
Hmm.
if anybody buys 1,000 licenses, Deb will hypnotize their spouse on the Saturday party for free. Is that true? Is
That's true, but I have to put a caveat. I cannot make you bark like a dog or quack like a duck.
Oh,
Only if you
well,
want to. Only if you want to.
okay, deals off. Those are
If you want your spouse to quack like a duck, sorry about that. Can't do it. But I can get you into a very, very relaxed state.
well, it's yeah, that would be actually super entertaining to try that relaxed state. But most people know Howie Mandel, the comedian, right?
Yeah, yeah. One
Um,
thing I
he
wanted to, oh, I'm
Sure,
sorry. One thing I
go go
wanted
go for
to
it.
note is that when I speak to companies about rolling this out and getting their employees excited about it and all that, is that I also recommend, of course, companies have a choice in this, but I also recommend giving employees that are signed up for these courses what I call a self-power hour. And that is an hour of time in their normal day, that they could actually practice the material or download, do the home play exercises. And it shows a real support for the employee as well. People feel very, very disconnected these days. And it shows that the company really is not just shoving stuff down their throat and, oh, do it on your own time kind of thing. It
That's a
gives them some
brilliant point.
time. Yeah, and it's fun. It's the self-power hour. Maybe the company says, okay, every Wednesday from 2 to 3 is self-power hour if you're taking the courses. And it gives them some time to do that because they need that. And nowadays, work and life are so integrated. You're working constantly. You're on the computer constantly. So it's nice to have a little downtime for that as well.
No, that's a great suggestion, because I know, um, well, I guess about 8 years ago, we developed an app when I was at my former employer, and it basically sent you out 3 videos a day, or
Yeah.
three items a day based off of what you wanted to address, whether it was
Hmm.
motivation or health, and people complained, right? Well,
Right.
when do you want me to do this, right?
Yeah.
And mind you, back then it was, life was a little different. Data on your phone was expensive, and things like that. So things have certainly changed a bit, but you have to give them the time. It's a goodwill gesture,
Hmm.
and it's a commitment to them, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
if you don't offer that, then there's an opportunity that, like you said, that you're just adding something else onto them, right?
Right, right. The other thing I think that's important, and you and I were talking about this earlier in terms of evaluating programs, and there's a lot of different wellness programs out there. Unlike something like a payroll system where you have to choose just one, right? And it has to be uniform across the company. Wellness is the complete opposite. You have to have a lot of options.
Mhm.
So you could go with a company that has a lot of wellness options. And if you think that the Self Power Now, if a company thinks Self Power Now can be integrated into that platform, then, I'd be happy to talk to that vendor. But the dilemma is we never know where anybody is on that continuum, that wellness continuum, right? Whether they need just small tools, whether they're motivated to do self-paced work or whether they're not. So it's important to offer a little bit of everything, right? So these courses have a specific slant to them. They're holistic, they're self-paced, they're digital, they're on demand, they're very kind of high tech, right? Something else might be more touchy feely, or might somebody else might want to sit on a Zoom call with a therapist or something like that. But you just don't know where everyone is in their life and what their preferences are. But we do know things are going more digital, right? So that's important. So it's important to offer more than one. And I'm not saying mine should be the only, wellness offer, by all means, never. I think you need a lot more than just one wellness program, unless maybe you're a small company and this is where you start with this
You
because
start, yeah.
it is very
But
holistic.
you are correct, though, right? There has to be a certain amount of connection between you and the philosophy of the program in
Right.
order for you to really want to do it.
Exactly.
And that's not the same for everybody. Depending on, just take a financial institution, right? Your coders, your senior coders that are in their 50s, that that have been coding all their life. They may not get the Zen thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then if you take your your millennials and Xers, which truthfully own over half the workspace now, from an employment standpoint, they'll get it, right? Or
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
chance they'll get it. So
Yeah. And they'll
and
want
you and you
digital. Yeah.
yeah, and so you really want to make sure that you do have choices, because it is a commitment that people make, right?
Hmm.
They have to do the work, and in order for them to do the work, they have to want to do the work. They have to get it, or else, back to that other scenario, you're just adding stuff onto the plate, right?
Right. And really, no matter what type of format they choose, anybody that wants positive change in life has to do the work, right? It's
Mhm.
just a matter of what gravitate, what they are, what resonates with them, where do they gravitate towards. Same thing with books too. There's, hundreds of thousands of books on happiness. One author or one type of, style of writing might appeal to one person and another person might like someone else. So you just don't know. And that's the challenge with healthcare in corporations. Well, not healthcare. Healthcare, I meant wellness, right? Healthcare is pretty, well, a lot of companies do offer different health care plans too,
Mhm.
but it's still very basic, like payroll. You have to kind of have one standard.
Yeah.
But with wellness, there isn't one standard and things change so quickly, right? But the one thing that's really, you know, fun for me because I've been talking about the need for, healthier, happy employees and how that affects the bottom line for years, 20 years ago, before there was any research to show that, right? Now there's tons of research. I think I just saw something last year or during COVID that came out that said, a dollar spent on wellness reduces healthcare costs by over $2 and absentee costs by over three or something like that, 3 and 2.
Yeah. I
And
I
that's a
know
huge
I know I've seen.
ROI. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
huge. Yeah.
I've been thinking the metric that I've seen most, I think it was $4.36
Yeah.
return on investment for every dollar you put in.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a
So
lot. That's a lot.
when you start combining everything, and the truth is, it's how do you combine, or how do you really factor in productivity? Right? Those are just
Mhm.
hard cost, right? That's time off, doctor's appointments,
Mhm.
absenteeism. It doesn't factor in the fact that you got a motivated, happy employee,
Mhm.
and what's the contagious level like in that in your department compared to having a I almost said Debbie Downer, but I
Oh,
shouldn't say
don't say
that
that.
when yeah, right.
I'm
That's
anything
a
but.
no, no, that I
I'm
agree
definitely
with.
a Debbie Upper. Uh, but you're right. And for so many years, companies didn't, they kind of poo-pooed those soft skills, saying, that's not important. We need to focus on the professional skills. Well, guess what? If your personal life is a mess and you don't feel good about yourself and you're not happy, all of that is going to affect your professional skills. And now finally, there's, a lot of research that points that way. So companies can't ignore it anymore.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and thank metrics are a little easier to pull now, so there is
Yeah.
that accountability, right? And
Hmm.
truth is, it is an expense, right?
Right.
And you need to always make sure you're making the right decisions, but you're right, there is some good solid research out there
Hmm.
that shows incredible ROI in these such things. So
Yes.
and so Debbie Upper, what's next? Right? 3 books, you got a program? Like, where do you go from here?
Well, next year I'll be launching a podcast called Self Power Now. That is going to be focused on female empowerment, women's empowerment, and I'll be interviewing women in all walks of life, both from corporate entrepreneurs, mothers, Reiki masters, all kinds of things that women are doing and talking to them about their journeys in life and how they feel self-empowered. And a lot of them have had major pivots in their life, just as I had. And I think it's important for other women to hear about these journeys so that they can resonate, so they know they're not alone, so they know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, no matter what challenges they're going through. So I'm starting to tape some of those podcasts shortly, and I'll be launching January, February. But the course is really just launched, so those are going to take a lot of time. And I'm offering those courses not only to corporations but to individuals as well. So an
Mhm.
individual can go on my site selfpowernow.com and actually just sign up for one course if they want. So I'm making it a little bit easier for individuals to get that information.
Yeah, and if there's any good thing that came out of the pandemic, awareness, right?
Mm,
Awareness
mm,
it's okay. It's okay to have problems, and I think that most of us realize that we're all kind of messed up, right? Once we get outside the house, right? And to some degree or another, and so,
Well, I
why
always say
not?
we all came from dysfunctional families.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's hard to functional. I can't remember. My wife said something about the other day. That was brilliant along that line, right? Yeah, everybody's got the problems. We're all dysfunctional, and we're just one big happy dysfunctional family, right?
Yeah. All connected.
Yeah. And there's nothing, there's nothing wrong. I think that that awareness is the first step, right?
Yes.
And it's really hard to change something if you don't realize there's a problem. And
Right. And you
you know
don't want to
it
look within. And to your point, what COVID allowed us to was the quiet time to look within. Many
mhm.
people never spent that much time with themselves before. I mean, literally,
Or their spouses,
or their
right?
spouses or family. Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of stuff got brought up to the surface during that time. And for the most part, when I talk to people, they're really grateful for it because it changed the way they look at life, the way they look at work. And organizations and corporations need to understand that too. And I'm talking to a lot of young people that say, I don't want to be connected, 80 hours a week to work. Whereas in my day, and now I'm dating myself, I mean, that was the norm. That was the norm and it was the expectation. And I had no problem doing it, but eventually got pretty burnt out from it. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 It's. I love. I've done a few webcasts on the millennials, and there was going through the presentation deck. It was really funny because they'd rather work 32 hours a week and volunteer or
Yes.
develop something on the side, for 10 or 15 hours, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I'm 52, so there's a part of me that's like, no, you get a job and work that job, 60
Different
hours a
era.
week
Yeah. Different
until
era.
and
Yeah.
and you move up the ladder and until you die. And I look at these people and I'm like, yeah, that's the way it should be, right?
Yeah, and
Especially
maybe that'll help change the corporate culture that actually became pretty toxic, in the 80s and 90s, particularly, and even in the 2000s. So, that doesn't need to be that way. It shouldn't.
no, it shouldn't. And what's wrong with taking a challenge or a new job if it excites you.
Yes.
It's invigorating, right? It's fun to do something completely different and learn a bunch of new skills and become a master of something else. And yeah, it only stimulates those little synaptors in the brain that allow you to learn more, right?
Yeah. I love it too because for 15 years I was in the tech market, maybe more, maybe 17 or so. And then when I started doing contract work, I got to work in so many different industries from hospitality to media to TV to just all kinds of things to associations. And it was so exciting for me because I did learn a lot of different aspects about business and people. And you're right, we need that stimulation. It feeds our creativity, it feeds our soul.
Yeah, it really does. And but you don't need you don't need to burn out. You
No,
don't need to
no,
burn out or struggle or you can take a program like Daddy's and and catch it, right? And you can
right.
catch it before it becomes unmanageable, right? And the unmanageability in a lot of cases, can go down some pretty dark roads for a lot of people, right? Divorce,
Yeah.
suicide,
Hmm. Hmm.
alcoholism,
Yes.
and they're all it's just what happens between years. So
Yeah.
if something's not sitting right, jump on it and deal with it. And it sounds like your program could help you in some of those
Yeah,
areas. So
it's always best to start when you start having problems rather than when you're going into that dark spiral where you really can't get out. But some people, do get into that dark spiral. And we've all known people in our families, in our circles that have had, some serious issues. I myself, I mentioned, I dealt with 4 deaths in my family early on. One of those was my younger sister. She was 23 years old, and she committed suicide. And so that was quite a reckoning for my family, for us, and sort of a start of like, wow, what are we doing here, and how can we help people before they get to that point, right?
Yeah.
And I know after COVID, suicide is certainly on the rise. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just it's horrible. And all the tools are right there, right? They're
Mhm.
all
Yeah.
out there, and they're not an arm and a leg. And
Yeah.
it's just take care of yourself, people,
Yes.
and you'll find, when you start doing those things, like the one book you have on happiness, like it all intertwines, right?
Yes.
It's no magic pill. It's just you just got to really change it, and before you know it, you'll be grateful for what you have instead
Yes.
of resentful what you don't have, right?
Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up because I always feel like gratitude is kind of the linchpin for all sorts of problems. And it's the linchpin to get to happiness for sure. The linchpin to get to love. It's the linchpin to get to peace. Is to be in that gratitude state, and that's really, really key.
Hmm. Hmm. Total. Well, is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap this up today?
No, if anybody is interested in contacting me about the program, either for themselves or for corporate, they can just go to selfpowernow.com, or they can email me directly, Debbie@selfpowernow.com, spelled the traditional way, Debbie. And also, there are some sample modules that I can share with organizations, with corporations, if they want to really see how the back-end platform works and the kind of material that that they'd be giving to the employees so that they can make a rational decision and informed decision. So I do have a free module that I can share for each of those courses, one free week for each of those courses that, say, an HR manager, a benefits manager might want to look at and decide whether or not they want to bring that onto their company.
Awesome. And for those who didn't have a pen or need to go back, the links will be in whatever description you're taking a look at. So,
Right. Oh, I want to mention one free gift as well. So on my site, and this is for anybody, corporations or people, if you get on my site, selfpowernow.com, and click on free gifts, there's a happiness bundle that I give out. Two of the pieces are written, and one is a guided meditation on relaxation. It's a journey in nature. It's not one of the meditations that are included in the course, but it is sort of fun to just have that. You can download it to your computer. So anytime you feel stressed out, just hit the play button and go for it.
thank you. That's a good offer.
Yeah.
Awesome. This is great. I
Great.
could talk
Thank
to you all
you.
day long. This
Yeah.
is, keep up the good work, keep changing people's lives, making the world a better place. How
Thank
can you
you.
not love and want to back that motion, right? It's
Thanks so much.
awesome.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having me on, David.
All right. Well, we'll talk soon.